Okay, so hello, hi, welcome. I am Strawberry Jen, and this is the 5th video on this channel. And for this one, I wanted to play around with the format just a little bit. Now, before actually getting started, I am doing drawing video right now of 3 different pals from the game Palworld as mecha versions of themselves. But before we really get into doing that, I wanted to take a note out of the playbook of a channel I recently discovered called Shameless Nerd, who was like, I don't pay attention to any of the YouTube rules. And I was like, I really like this about this guy. Not all of it works for me, but I don't think it has to. I actually appreciate the more kind of messy and more full of humanity style. So I was like, well, why don't I do something like that too? And now I'm a very new YouTuber. It's funny because this is actually my second channel. I used to run a tutorials channel. There's no point in looking it up. It actually got hacked into oblivion. And one thing I really appreciated about that channel was he was just like, I have really long intros and I'm gonna talk about whatever. So for mine, before actually getting into drawing, and this is an art channel, I actually wanted to do something completely different and kind of off topic and unrelated to that altogether. And that is, I actually wanted to start off about the extensions that I use for my browser. Basically extensions that help me wrangle YouTube into something a little bit more usable. So let me get the most obvious ones that I think we all know out of the way. I do use uBlock Origin and AdBlock Plus. But I also use things like Video Download Helper, which I will admit is a little bit of a pain to set up. You need to go download their companion app and do some craziness there. But it's an extension that I think is well worth having. And just to put my money where my mouth is, yeah, feel free to download this video. If you like anything about it at all, and you decide to pick up the Firefox extension, or I think there's also a Chrome extension for it. And also, I think the Firefox extensions work with like non-Firefox or like Firefox-based browsers. I'll have to double check now that I'm saying it out loud. But yeah, go download this video. I want data preservation. And that is a great way to do it. Okay, so another extension that I have active, and I'm sure there's going to be many a large YouTuber who's like, but that's how I make my monies. But I do use Sponsor Blocker. I do not like seeing sponsored segments in YouTube videos. So Sponsor Blocker it is. It is a little bit jarring when you're watching a video. There will be a section that it's like, and here's the sponsor, and it'll immediately cut and then go to after the sponsor is done. But to be totally honest with you, I would much rather have that than get bombarded with advertising. Now, it's funny because I actually do have a goal of desiring to grow this channel out into something I could call a living. So we'll see what happens in the future. But this video is staying up and it's staying existing, and I do use Sponsor Blocker. So there is one for the test of time. We'll see if it survives. Now there are 2 more YouTube extensions that I use to wrangle YouTube into something that I actually want to use. The first of them is No YouTube Shorts. I believe that's what it's called. Yeah. I personally do not watch YouTube Shorts. It's a bit of an irony because this channel actually has made a couple of shorts and I do intend to make more, but I am a time-displaced elder millennial. I do not go on to TikTok, really. I don't care about TikTok. I don't care about YouTube Shorts. I don't know why the short form format is so heavily pushed, and it's just not something I'm interested in watching on my mainline screen. It just isn't. So I use No YouTube Shorts to kind of wrangle in YouTube so that it doesn't force them down my throat, which is greatly appreciated. Now, like I said, I will be making shorts, but I won't be watching them. That might be a little hypocritical. I'm not totally sure. I'm not trying to be. I just want to throw that out there. And then the last one that I use is YouTube Nonstop. So I do listen to music on YouTube. Most of the time it's, artists like Richard Deb and a lot of people doing cool covers of like Undertale songs or video game music more generally. And if you've ever gotten annoyed by YouTube being like, are you still watching over there? This actually gets that turned off. It's not perfect, and I have noticed that sometimes if I'm on a different tab, it will stop, try to ask me, and then automatically continue again after about like 30 seconds or something. So it's not perfect, but it's much better than it was, where you have have to go to your computer and be like, yes, I am still watching. So that is another extension that I use to wrangle YouTube. Also, one honorable mention, this one doesn't have anything to do with YouTube itself, but I also use an extension called Bye Bye AI, which gets rid of Google's AI summary thing. Now, for my search engine, I actually switched it over to DuckDuckGo, which in my personal opinion should be our bare minimum. I actually remember when everyone loved Google and when Google was this tiny little company whose slogan, by the way, was "Don't be evil," and now they pretty much rule the world as we're here on this Google-owned platform, which, by the way, was not created by Google, it was bought out by Google. As I was looking up my own extensions, I actually saw another one that I probably will be trying out. It's literally called Improve YouTube. Now, I'll have to get back to you on that one if it's any good. But yes, I wanted to start the video off with what extensions I use to wrangle YouTube into place and to follow my will and not the other way around. So with all of that said, and speaking of Bye Bye AI and extensions and everything, let's get into what the actual meat of this video is supposed to be. Drawing mechanized versions of Palworld pals, aka totally not Pokemon. Okay, so for this portion of the video, I figured I would try my best to just freestyle what I wanted to say about the drawing that you will be seeing on screen. Now, this is the first of the 3 characters that I wanted to draw mechanized versions of from the video game Palworld, where it's a very irreverent Pokemon parody, and I have been really enjoying the game, and I will say, as I have played for, I'm gonna have to check and add it in here, but so somewhere around like 50 hours. I know that there's people who are like, I'm an avid gamer, I have 200 hours of game time in this game or that one, but I'm not one of those kind of gamers. But I will say that Chillet as a Palworld pal is one of my favorites. I pretty much always have Chillet in my little party, which is always fun. What I was going for when I was making this particular drawing, it was pretty evident that I was like, hey, I want to give him the little snorkel, kind of like what he has in his reference with his little beach floaty, and I think that Chillet is pretty adorable, if I'm being totally honest. And of the 3 designs that I decided, okay, I'm going to make a mechanized version of each one, Chillet came together the quickest, and it was really simple. I mean, he's already a pal that mostly you find, even though you find him on land, I mean, he's an ice dragon type, and his pal ride ability, like his alternate ability, is to let you ride him in the water. So it was pretty simple to go from that design to this one. You could probably see with the way I drew the eyes that it was sort of like inspired by like the way Metal Sonic looks like in the Sonic games, which I am an avid Sonic fan, so that shouldn't be any surprise to anybody, really. I will readily admit that I'm having a little bit of a hard time thinking up things to say as I go along, going, yes, this is Chillet as a mecha version of themselves. A few other details that you'll notice that I actually did put into the drawing is I have a red pal sphere being thrown at him. Initially, I was kind of thinking that I would do like multiples, but as the drawing went on, I was like, I need this to go quickly. But as you can see in the background there are 2 humanoid characters trying to catch this mecha Chillet. One thing I'm really curious about, now this is my first time doing a video exactly like this, where I actually did the base drawings first, and I'm both using OBS to record my Krita screen, as well as the Krita recorder, and I am very curious if having the speed paint sped up is even worth its time. I genuinely don't know, because as I'm working as an artist, I do really like to zoom all the way in and all the way out and see what I'm looking at, but as a viewer, I actually just personally don't really like that. So that's partly why I'm also including the Krita recording that just shows all the lines that I've drawn in chronological order as well. But if you guys could tell me down below in the comments what your preference is, I would really appreciate it, because this channel right now is really experimenting with what it wants to be. Alright, now for the second of the 3 mecha pals that I have drawn. I definitely think I have a little bit more to say about this one than Chillit, and that is Mecha Depresso, or as I have lovingly and endearingly called him, Mecha Espresso Depresso. So with this one, firstly, I actually had a hard time coming up with the initial concept into something that I liked, that as I began to draw it, I was like, oh no, it's not fitting my usual standards. Ah! So if you yourself are an artist and, you know, are like, this isn't working, just know it happens to all of us and it happens to the best of us. So with Mecha Espresso Depresso, one of the things I really wanted to get across was really making him angry, and as I was looking through seeing what other people have done for this character, I did see a lot of times they were putting him in an office, and I know that the official description for Depresso also has, I'm forgetting the name of the attack or the ability, where he has caffeine inoculation, I think is the ability's name. So originally, I actually tried to include floating coffee pots around in his design. In the final, they're not actually there, which I am sad about. Maybe I should go back and put them in. But I did give him the glowing energy kind of mud ball thing that he actually makes in the game. And one fun thing that I ended up doing with Mecha Depresso was giving him red and yellow lights all over the place, as well as a radio antenna, almost like he's getting radio commands from somewhere. Now, I'm not quite to the point in the game Palworld where I have actually faced off against the genetic research PAL group, but there is a genetic research PAL group in the game. So just kind of, it's easy for me to imagine a backstory where maybe this group got a hold of a Depresso or something and forced his consciousness into like a metal machine body or something like that. It wouldn't be the craziest thing that you see in Palworld. As a matter of fact, when I say Palworld is a very irreverent game, I very much mean it. It really feels like an honest-to-God parody of Pokemon, because you can make these little guys work, and when seeing Depresso mine like some rocks is actually the funniest, most endearing, adorable little thing. I'll have to go and either get the footage or go find some footage online and superimpose it over this, because it is really, really fun. So why am I drawing mechanized versions of all these little characters? Well, I've actually had the idea in my head to do a mechanization series of like a bunch of cool, awesome, popular video game characters for a while. When I first started using Krita's recorder docker, I initially actually tried doing this exact same thing with Minecraft, and I ended up drawing 3 different Minecraft mobs as mecha versions of themselves as well. I may revisit that idea because I thought it was really, really cool. However, I didn't fully understand how the Docker worked at that point. I wasn't using OBS to actually record my speed paints just yet, so I'm gonna have to redo that eventually if I actually go that route. Maybe I'll throw them on screen as sort of like a little honorary mention or an Easter egg, but I've just liked the idea of drawing these famous like video game characters, and I wouldn't necessarily say that Palworld's famous just yet. Well, it's famous for its lawsuits, but I actually, again, really like the game. So that was kind of my thinking, was I want to do a couple of series where it's a trilogy of characters being mechanized, or if they're already mechanical, maybe turning them into monsters or something like that, like creature designs, which I think would be just a ton of fun. Okay, and now for the third and final, and I might add most controversial of the Palworld pals, a mechanized version of the character of Lavender. Now, this character is very controversial for a reason, and that reason is, well, let's put it this way. She is entry 69, and her entry actually very explicitly says that she is very DTF, and if you're young, don't look that up. And the way she goes about it is, let's call it questionable at best. So if you play Palworld, and if you either capture or kill a Lavender, some of their drops will include things like memory wiping potion and suspicious, like like there's a suspicious something as well, but definitely they do carry a memory wiping potion, which has some not so fun implications about it. Now, the reason I chose to draw Lavender as my third mecha pal, to be quite honest, is because I wanted to choose the most recognizable palworld pals, where if somebody is familiar with the game, they're gonna know Depresso, they're gonna know Chillit, and they're gonna know Lavender. I could have gone with a couple of the other palworld pals, especially because when you first start the game, you're guaranteed to come across Lamball and Kativa, who both are very fun in their own right. I actually really like Lamball. I think they're adorable. So with my mechanized version, sort of as a little bit of a joke, I gave them like a gamer headset microphone specifically. And I do like the idea that all three of these mecha pals maybe have something to do with the genetic research pal team within the game. And again, I haven't actually gotten to that point in the game as far as like facing off against them or figuring out what their deal is. Now, kind of in reference to what this character's about, being very DTF and really wanting to have a night of hot love out on the town, I gave them sort of like a neck collar that sprays out a pheromone. I will say, as I came up with the design, I'm not so sure if I'm happy with it. I think it actually gets in the way of the design a little bit, if I'm being completely honest. But it's funny because I didn't really have much of a plan when I went in with this particular character, like how I was going to make them look mecha, aside from, you know, giving them the ears that are pretty similar to what I did with Chillit, where it's just kind of like compartmentalized out. But I think giving them sort of like the blaster gun ended up being a good choice. And I like to think that Mecha Lavender here is actually playing like some gamer game of some type in there. You know, maybe she's playing, it would be doubly hilarious if she was playing Palworld within the game of Palworld in this design. Who knows, maybe she's playing like Fortnite or something, like some multiplayer game. I will readily admit, I'm kind of from the old world of video games, and a lot of the things I like to play are actually single player and 2D side-scrollery. But I just thought it would be funny to make Mecha Lavender be like, gamer! And I think that actually comes across. It kind of feels like maybe she's like wearing a VR headset or something. Well, anyway, so that is my design for Mecha Lavender. And I hope that you enjoyed these designs that I came up with for this video. Like, I actually had the idea of doing a video where I would do mecha versions of 3 different well-known characters, let's put it that way. And I will readily admit that this whole concept was inspired by just watching some of Lavender Town's videos, and I'm okay with kind of being a little bit of a copycat, at least right now. I do feel like I'm kind of blindly grasping about in the waters, seeing what works for me and what doesn't. But I'm always happy to share my artwork. I'll actually leave a link down below to my DeviantArt page in the description, as well as just many other links to many other things as time goes on. I have a few ideas about like maybe bringing back link circles just via the YouTube descriptions. I think that would be a lot of fun. Well, at any rate, I do hope that you enjoyed these 3 different mecha pals. Okay, before I completely leave you off, I have a little thing that I want to share with you. So again, I'll admit that format-wise, I'm kind of ripping off both Shameless Nerd and Lavender Town. But I wanted to end my video off with something that I would say I'm proud of, but I don't think that's quite the right word. Something I'm excited about is I'm going to be ending off with a short 3D animation that I made. And this is important to me because it's the first animation that I've made in something like 8 years with my favorite 3D application, Blender. So I just wanted to end off on that note. Initially, I was thinking to myself, I'll make a whole new 3D animation for this video, but that seems like a little too much work, so I think I will save a new 3D animation for the video after this one. And I want to leave you off with the short little film that I created myself. Yes, there's a lot of flaws. Yes, there are things that can be improved, but you know what? We all start somewhere, and I want this film to be a testament that even if you put something down for a long time, you can get back into it, and it's okay if you're starting from the bottom, basically, because that is effectively what I'm doing in this animation. So without further ado, enjoy. Hey, hello, hi there, how are ya? Oh, who am I? Oh, I'm nobody, at least not yet. I hope to become somebody. For now, you can just call me Jen. I'm a 3D puppet, basically. And look at this place! You know, I think I'm gonna start reading some books out loud here and make little audiobooks in this place. I mean, there's a cute little fireplace, there's a little chair, there's a bunch of candles on the wall that don't make any sense. Ah! I think it's a nice little place. Well, anyway, I just wanted to introduce myself. Have a nice day! Okay, and we have reached the very end of the video. Be sure to like and subscribe and comment, especially comment. And I really genuinely just want to say subscribble instead. So subscribble instead, and also take your subscriptions feed and like bookmark it so that you go to YouTube subscriptions feed by default, because you'll have so much better of an experience. Anyway, that is the end of this video. I hope to see y'all in the next one, and adios, guys.